It's a miracle.
Hi.
So I caught the press screening. Obviously, I didn't get to make it to the premiere, but I'm heard it went pretty well. It's an understatement. Can you each kind of just elaborate on what it was like to premiere the film at Cannes, and how the reception kind of, if it overtook you at all?
Well, you've been here.
I was
times.
just saying to Kate before that, it's so funny with a director of films, and it's true for actors as well, is that we know the film, or Rooney hadn't seen it till yesterday, but
Yeah.
finished. But I know the film better than anybody else, but at the same time, I don't know it at all. I don't have the objectivity that a spectator will ever have. And so this moment of revealing this thing that you're so intimate with is so important, essential, frightening, informative, and you just don't really know what that is going to be like, and the stakes get raised to a ridiculous degree when it's at Cannes where that is launched.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing night. I'm still giddy from it. I'm still processing it. But it was like something out of a fairy tale. It was just to walk up the stairs and down the stairs with these two, with that music and their gowns. And it was something else.
Yeah. What about the two of you?
Yeah, I was quite nervous, actually. I was really nervous. But it was nice to be, usually on a red carpet, you're like thrown in the middle and everyone's screaming at you, but it was nice to be able to like have something to hold on to.
They were screaming at you still, but they're wearing tuxedos.
They were, but at
Exactly.
least I got to, I felt like I had partners. Which was,
Okay.
Oh, it was a big relief. I was really nervous. I mean, I've been here a few times, but never in competition, and I think it adds that extra kind of layer of anxiety, because it's, when you make a film, you're often quite dislocated from it's like at once it's cinematic and theatrical, except there's nothing you can do about it, but it was. I mean, I knew Todd had made a beautiful film and Rooney was amazing in it, but still you can never expect. You never know whether it's going to deeply connect with people who haven't been part of the process.
Yeah.
And for that to happen was a big relief.
You talked about objectivity earlier. What did you learn about watching it with an audience for the first time, about your own film?
They were quiet. They were very, very quiet, very respectful. I was like, we're not laughing at all. Not that it's a funny film, but there are little places where some of the tension might break for some viewers. It's still an unnatural and overdetermined moment at Cannes. It's like launching something from the top of a wedding cake. So there's nothing real about it particularly, but we're hearing reactions from people from the press screening on and that have been really exciting. The film I'm proud of the film. I think it's but it's a quiet film. It's not a film that takes you by the throat and shakes your head, and so you don't know that that's necessarily what everybody is interested in seeing.
Yeah.
But I think the responses were so heartwarming. The reverberations of the film, the ripple effect, sort of it stays with you afterwards, and that was really lovely to see.
Yeah, that's true.
Who knows?
What about the silences? That's what really stayed with me and affected me emotionally, especially as it came to, a close. Can you talk about your choice of imbuing the film with so many silences? I mean, to me, I don't really recall any line of dialogue except "I love you." I don't want to give anything away, but
Thank you.
recall that obviously. But the moments, the brush of the hand on the shoulder, the gaze that they have at the beginning and at the end of the film. Can you talk about your choice of including those silences, and to the actors, if those are easier to play, those beats, than spoken words?
It was a very anxious, anxiety-ridden time. I learned in my research, the end of the 40s into the 50s. A lot of paranoia. The Cold War had really made its impact on the sense of hope and possibility that followed the war had sort of all of a sudden frozen up. And these women live in very prescribed and different worlds that they're experiencing the limits of, respectively. So I think a lot of what isn't able to be said was important, and that's a beautiful part of the novel, because Therese can't even find the syntax for describing her feelings for this woman. There is no example in the world that she can point to put it into language.
Yeah.
And there's something radical and frightening and wonderful about that.
But it's also, I was just talking to someone before, when you have a baby, you feel like you're Mary and Joseph. No one has had a child before you. When you deeply fall in love, when you get ambushed by those feelings, you, like Romeo and Juliet,
Yes.
you discover this for the first time. And I think what is extraordinary about what you've really brought out in the screenplay is, and I saw this last night seeing it for the second time, is that yes, the women are front and center. Yes, these are undeniably two women falling in love with one another, and that's not something you see on screen very often. But there's a universality to it because they don't have any name or any language for it. It's not that different really from falling in love with a woman falling in love with a man profoundly and deeply. They're out of control, it's running ahead of them, and there's nothing they can do about it. And if they deny it, if they cut it off, then they're only living a half life. And I think that's what, it's sort of simultaneously an outsider film and an insider film.
Yeah.
Which I found really interesting to witness that with an audience last night.
Could I get you two both to speak about playing those silent beats and what that was like?
I always love those moments in film. Those silent moments that fill up the space between the words. I always feel like you kind of tell more of the story in those moments, and there's certainly a lot of those moments in our film, and I love playing those moments, and I loved watching them in the film.
Now, this is a film that obviously lives or dies on the chemistry of its two leads. I know that you were attached to the project before Todd came on, but how did you go about choosing these two as partners? Did you have them screen test together? How did that all work out?
Just prayed.
I've been watching Rooney's work from the beginning and just being so amazed by it, and the differences in the performances and the characters, and then I've spoken to people who've worked with her, and I just was like, oh my God, I just have to experience this for myself. And I really found that these guys work and bring the same kind of serious regard to the work, the preparation, the care, the concern about detail. And so the fact that there was that chemistry, the connection between them was not a surprise to me. And a real kindness to the collaboration and the people on set.
Yeah.
I feel like chemistry isn't something you can really predict. It's kind of like just a freak thing that happens. It's like catching lightning in a bottle. It either happens or it doesn't. Like, you can't create it. It's either just there or it's not, I feel.
Yeah.
So it was there for the two of you from the first
It was
day you
really
met.
there. I felt it.
You felt it
Still
deep
there to this moment.
in the core.
That's why Todd's sitting between
In my
us.
ears a barrier.
That's why she's all
Please,
Covered
stop,
up.
please. Sit between us. I can't go.
I do love this. Either you wear white and you wear black, or you wear black white.
Talk about chemistry.
Did you two
We did
plan
not
this?
plan it.
Really?
We did not
No.
plan it.
Okay.
It's-
Well, it
it's-
worked.
It's, see that film, Single White Female?
Yes, of course. I love what Carol says about Therese in the film. About what is the line about being an alien?
By being
flying in
an
from
angel
space.
flung out of space.
flung
out of Yeah.
What a strange girl you are.
Mhm.
Flung out of space.
I love that so much, and when I walked out of the film, everybody that commented on your performance spoke about that and how you really embodied
Wasn't it?
that. Yeah, in a strange
You've
way.
done that
Whole life.
before.
Did you use that line as kind of a springboard to delve into who Therese was?
No, actually, I remember that line always kind of like, I always was kind of scared of that line, thinking, well, am I that, like, I didn't feel flung out of space, but in watching it,
Which is exactly Therese's reaction.
exactly.
Yeah.
But in watching it, I could see that, but in playing it, I did not feel like flung out of space. It felt quite ordinary.
Okay.
But there's a real sense, and I think the film really describes this, of the women's isolation. And I think that's kind of that spaceman in orbit. It's that lack of she connects with with people, and then they miss one another, and so then when she connects with Carol, hopefully you have that feeling like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, but it's
Not
also exactly as you described, the universal unknown of falling in love, where your entire sense of self is rooted in the biggest question of all, which is, do they feel the same way that I feel? And so there's no bigger definition of being flung out of space than at the mercy of the unknown in that person who you just want to know, and that's what lurks for both of these characters.
The film has a look of an old studio picture. Obviously, it's not an old studio picture. It wasn't made on a studio picture's budget, given that it's an independent film, much like Far From Heaven, your previous work. But, Mildred Pierce, you probably had a little more money to play with, I'm guessing, given that it's HBO. What was it like for you to go back to having to struggle to get this film financed and made? And
It was challenging, the budget. It made every decision an essential one, but I was actually not looking at studio films from the time as much as I was looking at the photo documentation, the photojournalism, and the art photography that I was seeing in the research.
Yeah.
A lot of it taken by women, by female photographers who were being published in Life magazine and who were making documentaries. Ruth Orkin made a documentary with Morris Engel. They did 3, actually. The best known is Little Fugitive from '53.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was
But
amazing.
Lovers
I
and
had never-
Lollipops was
Oh,
this
I love
film,
that.
right? And they shot it in real places in New York City in '54 or '5, but they shot it in Macy's department store in the toy floor. And they shot it in the streets of the city with real extras.
Yeah, I'd
Extras.
forgotten
real-
about that. That was really
It
useful
was so
to watch
useful,
it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, really
The
useful.
way they moved and the way the women's bodies
And their the
moved,
sound
their
of their
voices,
voices.
So really, I was looking much more at the actual historical material as influences.
okay. Yeah, that was my way of saying it looks expensive. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.